Have you ever stopped to think about why we imagine AI the way we do? Whether it's a friendly robot sidekick or some kind of world-ending computer network, those ideas didn't just pop into our heads. They were written for us, sometimes decades ago, in the pages of science fiction. So let's dig into how the stories we love have actually shaped the technology we're building today.
So where are the people who are actually building our future? The engineers, the designers at these huge tech companies get their inspiration. You might think it's all just data and boring research papers, but you'd be surprised how often it all starts with a really good story.
Okay, case in point, the Roomba. That little robot vacuum buzzing around your floor, well, the company that makes it, iRobot, is literally named after Isaac Asimov's classic 1950 novel, I, Robot. That vision of having a robotic helper in every single home, yeah, that was born in fiction long before it ever became a real product.
Or what about something a bit more recent, like the metaverse? The whole idea of this massive, shared virtual reality world that companies are pouring billions into, well, that was massively influenced by Neil Stephenson's cyberpunk novel Snow Crash. The book didn't just predict the tech, it gave innovators a whole world to aim for. You see, this isn't just a coincidence, it's a clear pattern. Science fiction does way more than just inspire gadgets. It gives us the actual words we use to talk about the future. Think about terms like robotics, cyberspace, even ideas like the technological singularity. All of these were either invented or made popular by sci-fi writers. In fact, researchers say that sci-fi's influence really works in four main ways. First, it gives direct inspiration to designers. Second, it shapes what we, the public, expect new technology to do. Third, it creates a kind of social context, giving us these shared stories to talk about what might be coming next. And finally, it dreams up totally new ways for us to interact with our machines.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. While these stories are an incredible source of inspiration, they can also come with some serious baggage. They're not just a blueprint for what's possible. Sometimes they're a blindfold, limiting what we're even able to imagine in the first place.
This really lays out the two sides of the coin perfectly. On the one hand, sci-fi is amazing for helping us picture the future. But on the other hand, well, it's often full of technical mistakes and can really stir up a lot of fear. Researchers even have a name for this, the Frankenstein complex, that deep-down anxiety that the things we create will eventually turn on us. Plus, these stories can lock in harmful stereotypes or be based on social ideas that are just plain outdated. And this is a huge part of the problem. A single, really powerful story can just completely take over the whole conversation. I mean, think about Skynet from the Terminator. It's so famous that it's basically become the go-to shorthand for evil AI. And that makes it really hard to have a more thoughtful or productive conversation about what the real risks and benefits are. So, if our collective imagination is just cluttered with all these powerful, and let's be honest, sometimes contradictory ideas from fiction, how do we make any sense of it? Well, a team of researchers working with actual sci-fi writers and critics decided to try and map it all out. They basically set out to decode our collective dreams and nightmares about AI. And believe me, they were thorough. They didn't just cherry-pick a few famous examples. Nope. This team systematically selected and analyzed 115 different AIs and robots from novels, films, comics, you name it, spanning from way back in 1912 all the way to 2019. It was a massive project. So here's a peek at how they did it. First, they partnered with experts to make sure their list of AIs was diverse and important. Then, for each of those 115 AIs, they analyzed 9 key things, like its ability to learn, what it looked like, and how friendly it was. And then they crunched all that data with statistical analysis to see if any hidden patterns would just sort of emerge. And after all that number crunching, 2 big factors popped out that could explain most of the differences between all these fictional AIs. The first they called intelligence, which is basically how smart and capable the AI is. And the second they called humanity. Now, this doesn't mean is it human, but more like how familiar is it to us? Does it have a human-like shape? Does it communicate like us? Does it get our society? And this is where it gets really cool. By mapping all 115 AIs along these 2 axes of intelligence and humanity, the researchers found something amazing. It turns out that fictional AIs aren't just this random jumble of ideas. They pretty consistently fall into 4 very distinct categories, 4 archetypes that secretly shape almost every single story we tell about them. So first up is the machine type.
This is your classic unstoppable monster or your out-of-control tool. It scores low on both humanity and intelligence, meaning it doesn't really understand us and it's not very creative or flexible. This is the archetype that taps right into our fear of the tools we build just becoming this uncontrollable force. The perfect example? The T-800 from the Terminator.
Next up, we have the human type. And this is by far the most common one we see, which I think says a lot about us. These AIs are way up there on the humanity scale. They look like us, they talk like us, they act like us. And why are we so obsessed with this idea? Well, because they become these perfect mirrors, these metaphors we use to figure out what it even means to be human. A classic example is the one and only Astro Boy. The third category is the buddy type. Now, these AIs are intelligent partners, but they score low on humanity. They aren't trying to pass as people. They really represent our desire for a perfect companion that just extends our own abilities, without all the messy parts of human relationships. Think of an intelligent spaceship like HAL 9000, or a superpowered jet fighter. They work with humans, for better or, for worse. And finally, there's the infrastructure type. This one's a bit more modern, and it really reflects our modern anxieties. It's super high on intelligence, but has almost no physical, human-like form. This is AI as a giant networked system that runs society from the background, the invisible hand that controls the world. A great example is the AI Wintermute from William Gibson's Neuromancer. Okay, so why does any of this matter? Because having this framework gives us a new and, frankly, a much smarter way to talk about AI. We can finally move beyond that simple and kind of unhelpful question of, is it good or is it evil? And start having a much more precise conversation. And you can see how our vision of AI has evolved. The classic machine and human types, they were way more common in older stories. But the infrastructure type, it barely even existed in fiction before 1970. Its rise pretty much directly mirrors the real-world creation of computer networks, which just shows how our stories adapt to our technology. And this is really the key takeaway here. When an engineer is building an AI to manage a city's power grid, it makes no sense to compare it to a human-type android. That's just a category mistake. This framework helps everyone, from designers to policymakers to the public, use the right metaphors and avoid those tired stereotypes, so we can all have a much clearer discussion about the technology we're actually creating. So, here's a little challenge for you. The next time you watch a movie or read a book with an AI in it, try this out. Don't just ask yourself if the robot is a hero or a villain. Instead ask, is it a machine, a human, a buddy, or an infrastructure? You might just find that you understand the story and our real-world future in a whole new light.